Just waiting for Rockfin real quick.
Or-
Welcome everyone to Frank Analysis. I'm your host Franco. There's a lot of topics to talk about today, and I'm happy to be joined today, returning to the show, Ali Alexandra and Marcus Cage. First time on the show together at the same time, and I'm really excited to talk about these topics. But yeah, we'll go ahead
Same.
and introduce the guests here. We have Ali Alexandra, who is a co-host of the Slow News Day show. How are you doing, Ali?
Good. Thank you for having me on. It's good to be back. How are you?
I'm doing great. Other than just being
Good.
annoyed at some of the trolls that are on Twitter that just buy too much into the mainstream media
They're
narrative, but we'll get
out
into that when
there.
we talk about the
Yeah,
Great Reset stuff.
right on.
And I have Marcus Cage on here. I love having Marcus on because we always get into really deep conversations about history. How are you doing, Marcus?
I'm doing good, Franco. And hey, Ali, I'm really glad to be back. I always have a lot of fun when I'm over here on Franco's show. Um,
Love that.
it gives me a time to focus back on some of the integral policy issues that are going on, and it's directed from my show, which kind of ranges all over the place. Or my shows, if you all are familiar with my content, I am Marcus Cage from the Political Matrix, and what I've been thinking with Marcus Cage, and Hebrew apologetics with Marcus Cage also. So if you are not following or subscribing, please check out my channels. A lot of interesting stuff on there.
There you have
Right
it.
on.
Yeah, so subscribe to Slow News Day Show and subscribe to
Yeah.
Marcus's channels. I'm gonna have that all linked in the description, and I'm gonna cut up these clips because we're gonna go into a lot of great topics today. So starting with today, let's talk a bit more about World Press Freedom Day because I mentioned it yesterday when I went live when I talked to that AOC supporter, but I mean I
Mm.
introduced that it was World Press Freedom Day, but I didn't go into depth about how there's these hypocrites that are in the Biden administration, these imperialists that are acting as if they're for press freedom. Meanwhile, they're still um, torturing Julian Assange in the UK for revealing U.S. war crimes. So here's
Mm-hmm.
Antony Blinken. This is the tweet that he posted yesterday. He said, on World Press Freedom Day, the United States continues to advocate for press freedom. No, they don't. The safety of
No.
journalists worldwide and access to information on and offline. No, they don't, because they're censoring people. They're censoring people like crazy more than ever. They're
Mm-hmm.
advocating for it to implement laws to censor more people. They're pushing for Twitter, for YouTube, for Facebook to censor more people. Misinformation, but it's really just information that goes against and challenges their power.
Mm-hmm.
And free and independent press ensures the public has access to information. Knowledge is power. And then I said, I retweeted that and I said, free Assange. The Biden administration is a fascist and imperialist administration that attacks press freedom. So Ali just told me that she's working on an article that's going to go
I
into depth on
am.
how the Biden administration, all those guys are Anthony Blinken, Avril Haines, Lloyd Austin. They're all imperialists and fascists. So Ali, what are your thoughts
Yeah.
on Anthony Blinken's tweet? And
I mean,
yeah,
oh, go
go
ahead.
ahead.
Oh no, I was just gonna say. I mean, he's full of shit. Like, wait, I can swear on here, right? Are we at
Yeah,
the point now?
yeah, we
I'm so
can swear
used
on
to
here.
being on slow news day where you
I don't.
just
I
swear
usually
all the
don't swear, but
time.
that's just me. But
Try to keep it, yeah.
when I
But
get
no, but
really
this
angry, I swear more.
yeah, this particular topic is infuriating to me because Biden, I mean, Blinken, I'm not surprised, that he said that, but Blinken's been working with Biden for 20 years now, if not longer. They're old friends. They all come from the same school of thought, which is this like neoliberal way of expanding democracy through the free press. But I say free press meaning press that is approved, press that makes the United States look good. I mean, Biden has actually been, he's had a hand in lots of unfortunate pieces of legislation for our country. Obviously, the crime bill, he had a hand in the Patriot Act. He also had a direct hand in restructuring the United States Information Agency, which has ultimately become, like it was just one point like a CIA propaganda like arm of our country. And now it's, of course, an independent organization and it's called something different. But my point here is that Biden was he was a key person in crafting this legislative amendment to basically establish like a public-private partnership with that propaganda wing of the CIA. This is back in like the 90s. He basically had a hand in creating that public-private partnership so that this particular, propaganda wing wouldn't actually be seen as part of the government anymore. It would be a separate entity, but it's supported by federal dollars. So and I'll go into more of this in my article, but my larger point is that Joe Biden is most certainly not for all free press, aside from the fact that Julian Assange is still in prison. If you give a shit about free press or anything resembling that, Julian Assange would be he would be out, he would be free. But Biden's history in just kind of spreading a certain narrative and only one narrative that makes the United States look good and our enemies look bad, and also making sure that propaganda is infiltrating the countries that we, want to go over and continue just imperializing. So if you can't tell, Biden he gets me on some rants, which is good because I've had a lot of writer's block lately. So yeah, Biden is more of a fascist than people who, spent years fighting Trump's fascism. You haven't seen anything yet because Biden is the king of public-private partnerships. We heard that the other night in his speech to Congress. He loves a good public-private partnership. And to me, fascism is the marriage of the corporation and the state. And that's exactly what Joe Biden stands for. So that's my spiel on that.
And historically, that's the definition of fascism. Like that's what Mussolini said. It's the merger of the corporations and the state. Mm-hmm. And yeah, like public-private partnership. And that's what's discussed a lot with the Great Reset. And not only that, Biden has been an architect for so many fascist policies. Like when it comes to the Patriot Act, he was an architect for that. When it comes to the 1994 crime bill, he was an architect for that. He was an architect for militarizing the police under the Obama administration. Marcus, what are your thoughts on this, man? How disgusted are you with all this?
I agree with both your points. I mean, making a lot of great points. But a lot of people forget right before the crime bill, there was actually another crime bill before that one, which was going to be a little bit harsher, but they were not able to get all those things approved. So what Biden decided to do was the next time around, what I'll do is I'll take an issue, which I know they can't vote against. I'll pair that with it and then dare them to go against it. So that's why they put the Violence Against Women Act with it, because they knew plenty of Democrats were not going to be cool with that. And so the only way that he was going to force that through is, okay, I'm going to make you look bad. You don't want to protect abused women? What kind of person, would you be? So that would be like a political death knell in your reelection. And so he knew that. And Biden has always been a person who has been clever at finding ways to twist arms to get his policies through. And what people say, oh, well, he might not have supported this or supported that, or in the media he said this. If you follow his actions and you go down a little bit further, what you'll find is almost everything he was against, he ended up becoming for it or adding portions into it or trying to manipulate it or mold it. Biden has been very active on the security state side throughout his whole entire career. I mean, you go all the way back to Reagan. He was integral with the whole Iran-Contra stuff also. A lot of people don't realize that
he was so involved.
Biden, his whole, his image and persona, which he tried to portray from day one was, I'm kind of more of a progressive type, new age politician. I'm going to be for the people, like you said, average Joe. That's what he wanted to portray. But we also got, here should have been the biggest, flashing red light, I feel like, for all of us. Just think about which state he's from. Joe Biden comes from Delaware. And Joe Biden is literally the most corrupt man from the most corrupt state that's tied in with big business. And it's you guys just were so blindsided and so fearful of Trump that you just completely ignored the 800-pound gorilla that's right behind you. It's like watching somebody run from a bee while they got a cougar looking right at them. It's like, are you insane? So when I looked at Trump as the type of person where I didn't agree with damn near anything he said, but I knew one thing about Trump. He's lazy. He's not going to follow through with anything. Trump's going to say something for the attention he gets, and then everybody will try to, put something together to not make him look like a fool. But he has no plan. He's not really trying to push anything that he's actually saying. He's just doing it for the fame.
Yeah.
But Biden is an ideologue. He is a hardcore Zionist.
Yes, he is.
He said it himself.
He did. I found the quote today.
Remember that, Marcus? He's like, I'm a Zionist. You don't have to be a Jew to be a Zionist.
Yeah, I literally just came across that quote, like just doing research today. I forgot about it.
I mean, that's what it's like everything that I can think about. I think if I can name any politician in my lifetime that has been more detrimental to the Black community, there's nobody that tops the bill than Joe Biden. And I'm like, how in the hell did they get so good at propaganda that they convinced 90-something% of eligible voting, I guess, regular Black voters to support him? Like, how destroyed of a people, like I look at it, like almost like the Willie Lynch syndrome. It kicked the shit out of the Black community, obviously. For us not even to be able to pay attention to this guy, we're not saying that some politicians can't possibly help in some ways, but this guy, of all people,
that's the power of U.S. corporate media. They successfully propagandized the most propagandized people in the world, the U.S. population.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Ali.
No, I was just gonna say, I mean, he's what kind of person, let's just focus on the fact that he had one presidential run. I mean, the man, like when he plagiarized, it was like a Kennedy's speech like that. I mean, he's so
my God, yeah.
Blatantly, he's a loser. Like he continues over and over again. And so at the end of it, he kind of almost ran on that. He's like, I've almost been trying. Yeah, oh yeah. He's a fraud. He's a snake. I really don't talk about politicians much, but Joe Biden, though, like because he is a career politician through and through. I mean, he will truly say whatever he needs to say whenever it's convenient. I mean, and I found that if you want to hear Biden at his most honest, like in his most honest form, it's usually at like a Davos panel or at the Council on Foreign Relations. He loves.
Is that his private position that comes out? Because these people have public and private.
Oh yes, that's where his private self comes out. But the dumbass doesn't realize that he's on camera a lot of the time still. So he'll say things like there was a one that I found where and I'll find it again and put it out with this article or one of the articles I've got coming out. He says, back in my country we call it in Detroit the hood. He just says things like that out loud, or he'll just say things like they know me as middle class Joe, or he'll say things like now I'm talking to a room of people that are far more established, distinguished, and better than the average American. Like he thinks down on most Americans. They're a nuisance to him. He's very, very honest with these global groups because that's where his interests are.
There's video evidence of him pushing for war and shaming people for not wanting to go to war with like Iraq, with Afghanistan, like shaming like whistleblowers too.
Yeah,
who are like, oh look, like we didn't see any evidence of there being any weapons of mass destruction in Iraq, and then he shames them, and then he comes out here years later saying that I was resisting against the Bush administration.
No, you weren't. And another beautiful thing about Biden is like he does kind of make it easy because, again, the dumbass forgets that he says a lot of stuff out loud that like maybe if you're not listening carefully, you miss it. But when you are like, what you're listening for, he's pretty open about like what he thinks and how he's going to operate and what he's going to do. He says a lot of stuff out loud. He fumbles a lot, and it's fun for me just because I'm like, another thing I can just, like there's receipts. there's lots of politicians that are not as transparent as he is. But yeah, he ran on emotion like that. He said the reason that he ran for president was because of what happened in Charlottesville. And I've heard so many speeches of him just start out with like a story about his son. I'm sorry that happened, but that's not a reason that you should be elected.
Emotional manipulation.
It is.
Yeah. Shout out to Propaganda, Anthony Reyes in the chat. Shout out to Steve from Slow News Day and Glory Jones. Steve is saying that he's worked with Marcus since the beginning of his show.
Yes,
that's
he
awesome.
has. Yes, he has.
Awesome.
Oh yeah, I got so much love for my man over there. I mean, we've done plenty of sit downs and interviews and talk about a bunch of different subjects. And so, hats off to Slow Day News over there. Glory, she's a sweetheart. Also, I got to be on with her too. So, those who do not know about Slow Day News, check what's going on up there, because they're talking about a lot of issues that you need to pay attention to.
Yeah, I'm pretty fucking excited to be with them. So I could just listen to them talk all day. So yeah.
So we're gonna talk about how Taiwan is. Yeah, go ahead.
Something I wanted to say, because when you start talking about the emotion part, it reminded me of something. Because not too long ago, I was just doing something on the political matrix about propaganda. And I was going back to some of the early roots of it with Edward Bernays. And then you get into Edward Bernays and his uncle Sigmund Freud, and how they start using like freedom torches and all that stuff like that, propaganda. And then they eventually start moving into the business sector. And it got so pervasive, eventually those methods started to become used throughout politics, throughout a lot of our major media. That's the reason why it seems so cookie cutter and kind of, unorganic.
That's the father of propaganda.
This formula of propaganda that's been going on. And it's mostly started on an emotional tie they try to make with you to try to manipulate you on your emotions. Whether it's going to be fear, whether it's pride, whether it's insecurity, that's what they're looking for, to expose whatever weakness or perceived weakness that you have, to get you to buy whatever product or whatever notion they're trying to sell.
Right, like with women and smoking and the torches of freedom. But that's crazy. I just like that topic, just like propaganda itself and narrative management. That's probably my favorite thing to discuss, write about anything. So I just actually got a piece of art by, not like it's not original, but Edward Bernays, like a poster thing that I'm gonna frame, because I love all that stuff.
We'll have to bring you on the political matrix then, for interview. And I know Chris and Emmanuel, they love to talk to you about some of these topics. So open invitation, you're definitely welcome. And the same with the whole Slow Day News.
Yeah, I was gonna say,
that would be an awesome collab. Yeah, and Ali, when you publish that article that you're working on, you should come on this show too, and
I will
talk about freaking Biden.
Lab about I'll have a few coming out, because that man I forgot how much that man pisses me off. So.
Yeah, I mean, so that's what U.S. corporate media does, is they repeat a lot of propaganda to get people riled up for. How many times have they beat the drums for war? And now it's getting really dangerous, because look at all this propaganda that's put out there against China and against Russia. Yeah. So a lot of that is influenced by actually Taiwan, and this was reported on and discussed in Mint Press News by Alan McLeod in this great article. So we're going to talk about that here today. I'm going to pull up that article here on the screen for everybody to see. So this was published on Mint Press News by Alan McLeod. It's called Tanks and Think Tanks, How Taiwanese Cash is Funding the Push to War with China. So it says in 2019, Taipei Economic and Cultural Representative Office in the United States, or TECRO, for all intents and purposes, the Taiwanese embassy donated between $250,000 and $499,999 to Brookings Institute. And the Brookings Institute is commonly identified as the world's most influential think tank. Taiwanese tech companies have also given large sums to the organization. In turn, Brookings Institute staff like Richard C. Bush, a former member of the National Intelligence Council and the U.S. National Intelligence Officer for East Asia, vociferously championed the cause of Taiwanese nationalists and routinely condemned Beijing's attempts to bring the island more closely under control. Some other points. Other Taiwan-employed academics have chided the West on the pages of the Council's website for its insufficient zeal in deterring Chinese aggression against the island. A decision by the United States to back down, wrote Philip Anston, a Swedish recipient of a fellowship from the Taiwanese Ministry of Foreign Affairs, could damage the credibility of U.S. defense guarantees and signal that Washington's will to defend its allies is weak. Anston also insisted that Europe's future is on the line in the Taiwan Strait. Western democratic nations have moral obligation vis-a-vis Taiwan, he added on his blog, and Western democracies have a duty to ensure that Taiwan not only survives but also thrives. The reason this is important is that the Atlantic Council is an enormously influential think tank. Its board of directors is a who's who in foreign policy statecraft, featuring no fewer than 7 former CIA directors. Also on the board are many of the architects of the wars in Iraq and in Afghanistan. Get this, guys. It includes Colin Powell, Condoleezza Rice, and James Baker. When organizations like this begin beating the war drums, everybody should take note. And just like we just discussed with Biden, who has a 40-year track record of pushing for war and implementing policies, fascist policies, like the 1994 crime bill, like what Ali was discussing, and she's preparing it for her article, these public and private partnerships, the definition of fascism. That's when we should be questioning these things the most. Perhaps the most strongly anti-Beijing think tank in Washington is the conservative Hudson Institute, an organization frequented by many of the Republican Party's most influential figures, including former Secretary of State Mike Pompeo, former Vice President Mike Pence, and Arkansas Senator Tom Cotton. I can't think of any individuals that are more conservative than them that are serving in government. The words China or Chinese appear 137 times in Hudson's latest annual report. So focused on the Asian nation are they. Indeed, reading their output, it often appears they care about little else but ramping up tensions with Beijing, condemning it for its treatment of Hong Kong, Taiwan, and Uyghur Muslims, and warning of the economic and military threat of rising China. And I highly recommend you guys to check out a discussion that I had with Carl Zaw, as well as a discussion that I had with Bay Area 415, in which we were debunking mainstream media claims and even some independent or quote-unquote independent media claims against China when it comes to what's happening with the Uyghur Muslims and how it's vastly over-exaggerated. So, and this is another important point here, like the Atlantic Council, the CSIS organization is stacked with senior officials from the national security state. Its president and CEO is former Deputy Secretary of Defense John Henry, while Henry Kissinger, former Secretary of State and the architect of the Vietnam War, also serves on its council. Now, Ali and Marcus, the think tanks, what they use in their defense, like when these allegations are made, they're like, oh, you guys are receiving money from Taiwan, like isn't this a conflict of interest? And then they say, when we receive money, this doesn't affect like we're still going to be objective with our rhetoric.
Right.
What are your thoughts on that?
I mean, it's gaslighting. You just watch them. No, I mean, it's a revolving door. It's gaslighting. It's just like you go look with your own eyes and then listen to them. And this is, again, also going to be this is reflective of what's to come with Biden when it comes to China, how his administration is going to want to deal with China, which is going to be like these kind of, I mean, they'll still work together, of course, but it's not going to be like Trump's tariff war, even though I don't believe that Biden has cut any of the tariffs that are currently on China, but that's a different story. The fascist's gone, right? So yay. Anyway, I think that we'll just see more of this because it's kind of like more subversive ways of, we're propping up Taiwan and not so much China. And interestingly enough, this is also just a bit of a side note, but the there was a woman named Kayla Chow, and she's a Taiwanese American journalist at the Voice of America, which is part of, she's the acting interim CEO of the U.S. Agency for Global Media, which is what I was talking about at the beginning. That's that CIA, founded propaganda wing that has become its own, independent agency now with a different name. My point is that Biden, he appointed her like pretty much on I think it was like day 3 of stepping in office. So there's a very clear objective here, which is to, we're going to be supportive of Taiwan and just anti-China in different various ways. And this is just another way that we're going to go about it, especially with the think tanks. They're all friends. I mean, I wish people would realize that, like all these people that hang out in these think tanks, they're politician friends. They give each other talks. It's like, don't you all talk to each other enough? Like, how many events can you have where you're just giving more, like summits on the state of the world? They all have a very clear neoliberal, but very fascistic agenda.
100%.
And authoritarian, I guess. Yeah.
Well, I was thinking about, like, especially what you were saying about the revolving door. We have elected officials and they get out and then now they're lobbyists. Well, that's even more evidence of what we were talking about with the fascism in the U.S. And I've been concerned about it and noticed it for a long time because I used to say, okay, in Italy, they literally just took like the head of Ferrari and now he's the head of transportation. Well, what's the difference here? In the U.S., what we do is random CEOs just fill up their coffers and then they do everything they say. So instead of being one company, which is over one particular seat or position, now we have each of our politicians as a whole just being bought off by thousands of companies and completely sold out. And even if they vote the wrong way and the public finally wises up a little and say, hey, they're corrupt, we need to get them out of there. Well, they just go on ahead and become a lobbyist because they already know, because they've been doing the bidding of these people for so long, they're going to give them a soft parachute. And many of them are already planning that anyway. They're just trying to see, okay, if I stay a senator this amount of time, when I get out, I can ask for this amount of money. That's the only thing that's going on. And when you said, why do they hang out so much? If you were robbing people blind, I mean, and then you get them to not only come out and vote for you, but get them to argue with other people on your behalf.
They do your bidding.
I would be high-fiving it too, because I'm like, wow, we really did a number on these people. These people are dumb as hell. And that's America. But I mean, think about, I'm trying to remember, some of the legislation would still have the, I can't remember the name of the group, but it would still have like their letterhead on the top of it. And they forgot to take it off when they were introducing it for a bill. And I mean, it's the same company, which like Walmart, McDonald's, all these large companies are on, where all their lawyers and all that write these bills and then hand them to one of the lower staff assistants of some congressperson. And then somehow they come up with this 1,000-page legislation when you see all they've been doing is golfing most of the time.
Right. There's the 1,000-page legislation that always comes out. It's like they just worked all night and typed it all up right then, and then this crazy thing happened, and we've got prepackaged legislation for that event that happened.
I'm glad you brought up McDonald's, because I mean, people don't think about how McDonald's can be one of these companies that really profits off of war because of their contract with Halliburton, and a lot of these politicians have stocks with Halliburton. Halliburton lobbies a lot, and they pay a lot of these politicians. And then McDonald's expands, like when Halliburton goes to like Iraq or Afghanistan, like all these like fast food companies, like when Halliburton is at like Iraq or Afghanistan, like that's like McDonald's and all these fast food companies, like they start spreading across the country. And like and they weren't there before. like McDonald's, Burger King, all these fast food companies.
Nestle.
Oh my God,
That's a
Nestle.
big
They
one.
don't think about
Yeah.
Nestle. They just think about candy, and they don't realize how much water Nestle produces. And so it's a lot of companies that we don't think about, and how, like, a lot of people still to this day think of Bill Gates as a tech guy. And it's like, he hasn't been doing that for a long time.
No.
But most of the people are so behind and understanding what's going on that they're still thinking that he's the Microsoft guy.
Yeah,
They're not
he's still
thinking
working on
about what the hell he
Microsoft.
does now and all these Davos, initiatives and stuff that he pushes, and
Oh yeah.
stuff like the Great Reset. So
Yeah, and the Gavi Kovacs facility that he's just hoarding or fixing to eventually like just own like a stockpile of vaccines for we'll get into that topic later. But yeah, it's just like he's greedy as shit. Like I don't know how else I think he owns the most land in the United States now too. So
Oh
computers
yeah,
are
yeah,
like
that came out
hardly
recently.
yeah. So I don't know what he's doing. I'd love to know.
Also, what came
Mhm.
out recently, interestingly, is that he's going to divorce his wife of 27 years,
Yep.
Melinda
I know. So sorry, guys. So sorry.
I'm
Gates.
like, what? Their evil plans didn't work out. They had different evil plans.
Your
that
evil
day.
plan, my evil plan's better than your evil plan. No, it's not.
I'm just like thinking of him like
Is that
going
their
out now and like
argument?
trying to like pick up a chick and just being like, "Are you vaccinated?" Just like fucking trying to like get like women creepy as fuck. Yeah.
So there's
He's
two
horrifying.
more important figures that this article brings up that these Taiwanese lobbyists pay, and that's Adrian Zenz and Nancy Pelosi. I went into depth with about Adrian Zenz with Bay Area 415 when we were debunking all these claims, these anti-China claims about the Uyghur Muslims. But I'm just gonna read real quick what it says here. So it says in where is it? The TFD has also been a major funder of the Victims Communism Memorial Foundation, a far-right pressure group that insists that communism has killed over 100 million people worldwide. Last year, the Victims of Communism Memorial added all global COVID-19 fatalities to the list communist-caused deaths on the basis that the virus started in China. I mean, why can't they do that with like capitalism? Like all these COVID-19
Right.
deaths in the U.S. are caused by capitalism, right?
But see,
Same
right.
exact logic. The foundation also employs Adrian Zenz, a German evangelical theologian who is the unlikely source of many of the most controversial contested claims about Chinese repression in Xinjiang. So this is a guy who thinks that he was gifted by God to fight against communism and fight against China, which is the Antichrist. And I've gone into depth about Adrian Zenz with Bay Area 415. You guys should definitely check out that interview. And then the article goes on to say that Freeman's study of the Taiwanese lobby found that 7 organizations registered as Taiwan's foreign agents in the U.S. Those organizations in turn contacted 476 members of Congress, including almost 90% of the House, as well as 5 congressional committees. House Speaker Nancy Pelosi was their most frequent contact. The Californian being contacted 34 times by Taiwanese agents. Pelosi has been a great supporter of Taiwanese nationalists, successfully promoting pro-Taiwan legislation and proudly announcing that the U.S. stands with Taiwan. Ali and Marcus, what are your thoughts?
Not surprised because Taiwan's just essentially like a vassal state of the United States. That's all it is. They want that to be, the counter to the superpower that is China. I love how they all act like they didn't know that China was clearly planning to become a lot more globally competitive because of a lot of the neoliberal policies that caused all this shit in the first place. I mean, I'm just taking mostly like what the United States has done towards China in the last 40 years. So Taiwan is like their greatest resources. And again, that's why I go back to channels like Voice of America, which is essentially the propaganda arm of the United States, because these channels all over the world, including in Taiwan, are pushing messages like that are all pro America, anti China, just furthering divisions and such. So that's one aspect of it. And the other, of course, they're calling Nancy all the time because Nancy's in bed with all of them. They're all in bed together. Like they're all they've all got money invested in all of this. So they're going to protect their investments, and they've worked really damn hard to keep things the way they are. And they were clearly pretty shaken up, at least a bit, for a few years there, because you would listen to them talk at the Council on Foreign Relations, like people like Biden. And there is definitely some uncertainty. So I think now that they've got their guy back, to be the face of this group of people that just won't fucking go away, they're like going full speed with it because they're like, we got to go. So that's my thoughts. How about you?
I think that these people are playing a very dangerous game. That's what I think they're doing, because they're thinking that we can just prop up, a country that if China gets out of line, we could just put China in line. Like China is Venezuela. Like China is, Costa Rica, China is not some little small country which you can just manipulate, or even a mid-sized country.
No.
China is a superpower, and they're already making the mistake of trying to take a tiny country to prop up against China. That's already one mistake that they're making. But here's the thing. They're not only doing it with Taiwan, they're doing it with multiple countries right now. At the same time, they're doing the same thing with Russia, with Ukraine. They're trying to back Ukraine to use that as an arm or leverage against Russia. What that's starting to do is starting to push those two together.
Yeah.
Now you have India with this whole, vaccination situation, them wanting a bunch of vaccinations, and America sitting on their hands and ignoring them and won't give them any supplies or ventilators or anything. They're like, really? Is that how it is? Now, the government hasn't made an official statement, but the sentiment in the streets and the news and stuff like that from India, it is very, very anti-American right now. And so what I'm seeing is, whereas Trump was already making, he was like breaking off the friendships, Biden is coming in here and he's really like throwing the first like shot across the bow at some of these countries and being very, very verbose. And I mean, it's almost like Reagan is back in power. That's what it feels like.
Or that he never left.
Yeah, he never left. Yeah,
this is like Reagan time now. They're ready to just start fighting with everybody. But what it is, they're going to say that they're not trying to fight with anybody. But
never.
If you walk around trying to puff your chest out in everybody's face and saying, shut up or I'll smack you, everybody's not going to sit down. And that's what I feel like it's starting to rear its head right now. Because not only that, now you got North Korea starting to get pissed off again. and so what you're doing is, okay, you can deal with one enemy or one other enemy here, but if you look back to ancient history, just like Rome, when it started to fall, Rome was embroiled with conflicts everywhere. They were trying to fight everybody at the same damn time. And America is just picking up another, and it's like, okay, they're not fighting, but they're getting at that point where one wrong ship gets hit out or sunk out to sea, and we're at war. And you already started putting these other nations against you, which already are working together. Not to mention Iran is doing business with China and Russia. You're setting up one side against you. You're like literally splitting the world in half and hoping that all your buddies are going to be on your side.
Yeah, and hoping to make some money.
We're playing a very dangerous game. And most people just want to pay attention to, I want to go back to brunch and pay attention to whatever stupid shit Rachel Maddow sing. But I'm like, as a nation, we're at the precipice of war and we don't even realize it.
Yeah, I mean, we've been in war. It's just forever.
no,
I
but
mean,
this time,
like,
But
you
now
know
we're
what I
gonna
mean?
get
Like
into
now Biden's
more
like,
war.
oh, it's over. Yeah, but it's like the war on terror in
Yeah.
Afghanistan is over. I'm like, oh, right. So are you going to tell everybody how you're going to be sending a lot of special forces back to Africa to make sure that the settlements and mines that you want to, protect for yourselves to, you know, for the fourth industrial revolution that is here. It's just like you only get a quarter of the story, if that. It's never like, oh, the war, everyone's coming home. It's like, no, we're just relocating them and calling them special forces, not, the army's like invading. And yeah, it's the same shit, but just with a smile.
Yeah.
So
Well,
you could have Trump, it's like we're at war, or do you have Biden that's like we're pursuing our strategic interests together.
I'll say that the difference though is it's one thing when we're fighting against so-called terrorists and smaller poorer nations in the Middle East, halfway around the world, who don't have technology to strike back at you. But now we're going to be dealing with people who actually do have military technology to actually hit the United States and do damage. And it's not going to be like the United States and be like, well, if we go to war, oh well, we're going to go fight it on your land. Not necessarily. Some conflicts might end up over here, and you got to remember, a lot of nations are buying up land all over the United States.
China's one of them.
Oh yeah.
China's bought up a ton of land,
in the neighboring
especially in
countries
Jamaica
too.
also.
Negotiating with the Latin American countries.
That's what I'm saying. And so what they're doing is just like how the old Monroe Doctrine started off saying, you guys don't come over here into the Americas. Now everybody is creeping over into the Americas, and all they have to do is just sit there and wait and coordinate an attack, and we will be completely off guard. And I'm not wishing for nothing like that, but I'm just saying, pay attention to it and keep it in your back of your mind as a crazy if and. But we could be looking at a possible World War III situation if they keep doing the things they're doing.
And remember one of the last times you were here, Marcus, when we talked about John Kerry's plan to combat climate change, like some of the ways that he was planning was to build bases around countries and in other regions where China has negotiated with those countries, and to fight Russia in the Arctic. Because resources there, like we can't let China and Russia obtain these dangerous resources, so we're gonna fight them with war. It's so stupid. It's like the war on terror, the war against. Now they're gonna say the war against climate change, as if like war is gonna make these things go away and not exacerbate them.
Remember, Biden said we gotta win. Remember,
I was just gonna say it's the war for the 21st century, meaning the fourth industrial revolution.
Which we're gonna get into right now. But first, I'm gonna give some Rockfin shout outs, people who are donating super rays in the chat. What's up? Emblem Fate said Biden uses his son's body like a shield. Even Trump didn't use his brother's death as a political tool. Also, real socialists / communists should reach out to China for advice. Oh, that's another thing. The war against communism never really run away. What else are they going to use? Like with Russia, the war against misinformation. They just want to start a war against everything. Yeah, what are your guys' thoughts on that?
Well, I would just even add to that actually that, of course, like with China and other countries, they're like, it's communism, but it's like the Red Scare somewhat, well, in different ways, but I'll just use the communism way. Like, for example, like on the right, generally, what I'm noticing is that communism and fascism are getting conflated thanks to like a lot of mainstream media on the right. So this is just a little side note, but I want people on the right to realize that it's actually fascism that they're telling you about. It's not communism. So if you would just realize that, then like, all like fight them together, but not like literally get out there in the streets and fight, but you know what I mean. But my point is that the communism, the Red Scare is always going to be a thing, divide and conquer. That's always like othering people. That's just what they do. So like it makes me laugh a lot when I hear that from some people that Joe Biden's the most left-wing president.
Jesus Christ! And even from people like Cornel West saying that he's braver and more courageous than Obama.
Okay, that kind of solidifies my unfortunate suspicions of Cornel West.
I mean, it's funny. Oh, sorry.
No. Go ahead. Go ahead.
I was just thinking, like, all of this stuff is just kind of funny to me how it's playing out because the whole Red Scare stuff, it's always gonna be there because
Mhm.
a lot of the early founders of this nation who have controlled a lot of parts of this nation have always hated Russia. And the hatred of Russia goes back, honestly, to what was it? The Civil War, actually. A lot of
Mhm.
people did not know that Russia actually sent a fleet of ships to help the North, and they were stationed right off the coast. They didn't need the ships, but those Russian sailors were there just in case. And it swayed, some of the southern soldiers' approach. And so they were like, "Oh, okay." So that made a difference in warfare, and they never really forgotten Russia for being involved in that. And so if you look at it throughout history, Russia's always on the other side of China. I mean, not China, but America. They're
Yeah.
always on the other side. And maybe in the 80s there was some stuff, actual serious back and forth. But what's happened now is, it's for me, I kind of describe it like the the corporate left. What they've kind of done is they've kind of called Bloody Mary 5 times without realizing it. It's kind of like they kept Russia. Russia's doing this. Russia's doing that. Oh, they have this.
Russiagate.
They got that, and they kept blaming everything on Russia to the
Yeah.
point where now Russia is going to be a problem. And it's like when Putin got to that point, he was like, you know what? Debate me live then. That's
love
somebody
that.
like I look at that like somebody in the streets, saying, "Hey, come on, man, meet me outside then if you really feel that way." And so he's already showing that his tone towards the Biden administration is different than it was with Trump. His fuse looks a little bit shorter. Now, whether you're like Biden's approach, whether you just feel like, oh, well, Putin's bad, you got to look at if two people are about to fight, that's a problem. And if they are superpowers, that is a huge problem. And so you got to look at just kind of the tension. And Putin is not. See, Biden is used to being the super alpha male. I just say how I feel, and you deal with it.
Yeah.
Putin is the same way. But Putin is not about to back down to Biden. That's never going to happen. And so you got two people that don't want to back down. Eventually, something's going to happen.
Yeah, I mean, Biden, of course, cognitive isn't all there anymore. But yeah, he's pretty married to that.
That might make it worse.
Yeah, I know. Because he'll frequently just kind of like lash out a little bit. He's always done that. Like if just speeches like from back in the day, he's a fucking asshole. If he doesn't like what he hears, even if you're just like a constituent, he'll snap at you. I mean, I guess my point is that I thought it was hilarious, no matter how performative it all was, that Putin was like, debate me. I would have loved to see that. Putin would ruin him.
Oh God.
Mm-hmm.
But hey guys, Mona Carmona over at Rockfin sent a super rate. Thank you very much, Mona. She's reminding us. She said, "Come on, guys, we voted for fascism. We voted out fascism. Biden is a great guy." Yeah. She said, "Off topic. Love seeing the three of my faves. Love Franco, Ali, and Marcus. Also, Marcus, I'm more of a Martell gal, but the Starks are okay." Well, she's talking about your Game of Thrones shirt.
Dope. So don't get me wrong. I still have a lot of love over Martell. It's kind of fucked up how he had to go out though.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
That's not.
So yeah, we really should talk about the Great Reset, and I'm glad that Marcus is here and Ali's here. Ali has been talking a lot about the Great Reset even before she was on Slow News Day. And we're also going to talk about bloodlines and how these same bloodlines have been in power for literally thousands of years. And I'm glad Marcus is here to talk to us, talk with us about this. But pretty much for people who don't know what the Great Reset is yet, because I have a lot of new people who recently subscribed or recently found us. Many rich nations have suffered economic turmoil after the pandemic. I'm not pushing any conspiracy theories here about the virus being manufactured, but it certainly is being taken advantage of by rich elites to push their agendas. The Great Reset is not a conspiracy theory either. It's something that was talked about and supported openly on the World Economic Forum by Klaus Schwab, who is the executive chairman of the forum. Time magazine, which is owned by Mark Benioff, had the Great Reset on their front cover of their November 2020 issue. Benioff is also a co-founder of the Breakthrough Energy with Bill Gates, Mark Zuckerberg, and Jeff Bezos. The Great Reset was also discussed and supported by England's Prince Charles, Antonio Guterres, who is the Secretary General of the UN, Kristalina Georgina, who is the Managing Director of the International Monetary Fund, or the IMF, and other officials associated with Microsoft, credit card companies, and BP. The slogan, one of the slogans, "Build Back Better," is used by Joe Biden. It's been used by Trudeau of Canada. It's been talked about by all these powerful people in different countries. So the Great Reset is about Klaus Schwab's released plan for how to overcome several of the economic and environmental crises that our world currently is facing. He provided details about his plan in an article on the Globe and Mail, and the three main components of the Great Reset agenda includes fair market outcomes, number one. Number two, the investment in equality and sustainability, so bringing in environmental issues into this. Number three, harnessing the innovations of the fourth industrial revolution. The fourth industrial revolution includes omnipresent internet surveillance, which includes virtual reality also, and it's going to be powered by 5G technology. This includes nanotechnology for physiological tracking, so seeing if you're going to get sick. Digital and trackable IDs, social mappings, and online social credit scores. As far as the quality and sustainability, Schwab wants to increase deep sea mining in the Pacific, Atlantic, and Indian Oceans, and increase mineral mining in Africa. And we know that the solution to these environmental issues that are caused by capitalism is more capitalism, right? And more imperialism, which is the highest stage of capitalism. Going after these countries like Africa, like these countries that are in Africa, like taking cobalt from the Congo, and also the other countries in the global south, like taking lithium from Bolivia, so that we can power all these technologies, all this 5G technology. Something I've often said in this show is that capitalism is tied to imperialism and overexploitation of natural resources. So if you're concerned about the environment, if your interest is in more capitalism, then you're going to need resources in other countries. The problems with capitalism have certainly been exacerbated and highlighted in recent months, but the solution proposed by the elites appears to be more technocracy, globalism, and authoritarianism. So the Great Reset is a global revolution for capitalism. Marcus and Ali, is there anything else you guys want to add on?
There's so much, so it's like I don't know where you covered it.
I guess mine will be quick. I'll go first and then let you go, because I'm pretty sure you can really expand. What I like to do is they have like a 4 or 5 minute clip explaining from their own perspective what it is. Now they have multiple clips, but like the main one, that's like the little 4 minutes and 54 seconds exactly. But on that clip, it's like a straight infomercial telling you exactly what their goals are.
You're talking about the one that's like the Great Reset, but that sounds like a conspiracy theory.
That one, or is it the one where they're like, you'll own nothing and you'll be happy or something?
Yeah. We get a lot of people who like mock it, like, oh, the Great Reset, and it's like, no, dumbasses, we didn't come up with this. This is what they named their plan.
You can go to their website. They'll tell you all about it.
And we have to deal with a lot of these dumbasses on Twitter that don't even understand that this is something real. This isn't like, oh, well, the second name of the Kabbalah to the Illuminati. We're not making up some shit. This is what Charles Schwab and a lot of these billionaires and a lot of our global elite have come up with on their own, and they do interviews about it. This is not a conspiracy. They all talk about it. They do press releases. So at least let's get that part straight. This is not a conspiracy theory at all. Exactly. This is factual. Now, let's get into what they want to do. if you want somebody socially engineering your environment, then this is perfect for you. But if you're like me and you already don't like what these people have been doing thus far and don't want to see what their plans are, in the future, then you're with me. So I'll leave it there.
Yeah, and these people have ties to Pfizer, Moderna, and all these other big
Yeah.
pharma companies. But, unfortunately, a lot of people who should know better aren't questioning this and aren't being skeptical enough about the vaccine rollouts.
It is a huge component to accelerating all of this. I think it actually is called an acceleration. It's something along the lines of acceleration factor. Yeah, the fourth industrial revolution and the Great Reset really go hand in hand, because the Great Reset is what then, leads us into, which we're already well in. We're here. Sorry to break to everybody. We're here. It's not, there's still time. I always like to be optimistic, but it's time to adapt and really start seeing things for what they are. So, something like Biden was just talking to Congress about his plan, his big old plans for the country. And he's rewording essentially the Great Reset and how to implement the fourth industrial revolution. So when you hear green or clean technology,
Oh, geez.
that's actually just some shit coming from minerals like from the ocean floor or Africa, South America. It's different. It's just different. That's all it is. It's out with the old and just exploiting new resources. It's nothing, because he'll go on and on about how it's going to create all these jobs. But then 20 minutes, prior to that, he talks about how, there's going to be like massive job losses, but like, don't worry, I'll save you, because they're trying to balance all these things, which is you're going to be having a ton of automation that's going to come in and replace a lot of jobs, especially like I hate that phrase, low skill jobs, but those jobs are going to be wiped out. And Biden knows this. He's at the book, The Fourth Industrial Revolution. He again talked with Klaus about it on stage at Davos in 2016. He's had a direct hand in bringing this in. He's all about it because he's going to make bank and his friends are going to make bank. And this is what they've been working towards for years. This also brings into, and I know that you said some of your listeners are a little newer to this, so I'm sorry because I do kind of just jump to like the crazy stuff, but like the United Nations, have you ever heard of, the UN Agenda 21, Agenda 2030? This is that as well. This is just tying in as many, little strings of the United Nations and like, I sound like Alex Jones, like the globalists, but it really is like tying it all together. And it's all for, let's give them the benefit of the doubt, what they think is best for the world. Because a lot of these people, Klaus Schwab, most definitely, he's like eugenicist. You go read Whitney Webb, Last American Vagabond. They'll tell you all about it as well. And Slow News Day, we talk about it. These people are hell-bent on controlling every single facet of your life, from your job, from what you're doing, what you're wearing, they want to get in your mind and what you're like, what you're thinking. What do you think, like Neuralink is for? Like, as far as like Elon Musk and what he's coming up with, like a lot of that shit is to like get your brain like connected to the Internet of Things. I know I probably sound a little crazy here, but again, you can go look up at this on the World Economic Forum itself. The Internet of Things.
This is directly from what they're like. This is coming from them.
Yeah. I don't want to tell you. Go look at them. Like, go listen to them. They'll tell you all about it. They've been telling us all about it for years. The Internet of Things, that's going to be it's its own, like running on 5G, just network literally of things. Like the first time I heard it, I thought it sounded really silly because like, what do you mean the Internet of Things? But it's literally just things from like self-driving cars, little sensors, cameras, drones, you name it. It's all operating on this own network, satellites. So, that again brings into like why we've like got this emphasis on the Space Force. It's all about control of the network and just this next revolution. And I think what's most infuriating to me is that every time it seems leaders of countries will try to at least like, they might be dictators in their own right, but I'll use Africa for example. Every time a leader of a country in Africa tries to at least like somewhat defend their own country from like, just their resources being exploited, something usually happens to that leader. So, one after one leaders are trying to like in some capacity if they know what they're up against, at least like, call it out. But I mean, these people are just, they're masters of marketing all of this as well. It's like a happy, it's like a happy thing. This is good for us. Like
Mm.
it's really scary. So that's why I keep going back to Biden, just because there's so many speeches I've seen where he's been on stage, at these panels with Klaus Schwab talking about this book, The Fourth Industrial Revolution, and the Great Reset. It was the perfect opportunity to kind of flip things over and start anew. There's things like think how many people are just working from home now forever. They're not going back to the office. So it's just getting people comfortable with these little adjustments, these little tweaks in your life, because they're just going to keep going with it.
And
We're never going to go back to normal.
And shout out to you guys over at Slow News Day for covering this. Marcus has also been covering this. It's really important. And look, the Great Reset talks about more surveillance, right, to keep us protected. Yes. And they're working with companies like Palantir, which like predicts where crimes will happen. What did Edward Snowden reveal? That they're already surveilling us, but this is going to amp up the surveillance. And then we have in power the guy who's an architect of the Patriot Act, which was also about amping up surveillance. And
he wants to now, of course, they've been doing this already, but now just make it justified to go get all those domestic terrorists, because all these domestic terror laws that are, you'll see like in the Congress, they've got like a lot coming up. Biden is all for that. He's, using private companies to provide information on people, private citizens.
Partnerships.
More of that. You're going to see more public-private partnerships. The last thing I'll say about this for a second, then you could go, Marcus. Biden, again, in 2016, when he was talking at Davos with Klaus to this group of people, his main focus of his speech, along with, just bringing in the fourth industrial revolution, was talking about the need for corporations to work better with governments because they need to give back more. So it's truly fascism and dystopia in every sense.
Yeah, I'll tell you, to add on to that, literally, my co-host Chris and Emmanuel, we'll try to send messages back and forth, and they will literally block us from sending private messages to each other. So they're already digging to that level. And we've seen and that's how they do it. They creep and creep and creep. And Edward Snowden was talking about it. And we also know that Pentagon, CIA, DOD is all tied in with the entertainment industry. Now, we wonder why we start having movies where it's like, this in a year 2245, that this is going to happen. And then it doesn't, in our world, we don't see it materialize exactly the same way, but we see an eerie echo-ness to what we see in a lot of Hollywood movies. And it's why? Why are we seeing these things before these things happen? So you guys can call people like me a conspiracy theorist if you want to, but
you're just
give me
asking
an explanation why all of these
and making
things,
connections.
Why entertainment is showing us all these things, which later on we eventually start seeing in our own reality. Are you telling us that movies create our reality? Or are they maybe just mentally prepping us for things that are down the road, which are already planned out?
Ooh, Al Gobis makes a great point. Said they're priming us with these Hollywood movies.
Exactly. Just one more like a sidebar of this, which you'll see more and more of this. Harvard, we talked about this on Slow News Day. Harvard has a misinformation, just a website dedicated to the study of misinformation, and they just developed a game, or they had a game around the election time, but then they've got a new one now. We actually played it live on Slow News Day, and it's all about this narrative management aspect of kind of ushering all of this in, and they'll give you bits of truth, but then they'll mix it in with some crazy stuff that's beyond what you would think, and then it's training you. And this game is for kids. It's training kids to spot this information, but in reality, it's making you not question anything, because you shouldn't question anything, because that's going to be a problem. So they're on this endless quest to find this utopia, and that's just I mean, I keep trying to, they've been trying and trying and trying and trying, you know, for decades and renaming it and rebranding it. And it's like, you know, every time people, like humanity still comes in, but this is an entirely new realm because of the technology that is going to be implemented and the money that is on the line. You know, people don't fuck with people's money. So these people are all in. The more people that know about it, the better. And I know it is hard to just start out like slow about this stuff, but like I said, just go to the World Economic Forum and look at the Great Reset. They'll
Yeah.
tell you all about it.
And we've been talking about Klaus Schwab, but there might be some people that don't know enough. What better article is there for people to check out than Johnny Vedmore's article on the family history of
Yeah.
Klaus Schwab, which you can find on Unlimited Hangout, and I'm gonna have it linked when I cut up the clip. So yeah, it's called "The Schwab Family Values." Is the real Klaus Schwab a kindly old uncle figure wishing to do good for humanity, or is he really the son of a Nazi collaborator who used slave labor and aided Nazi efforts to obtain the first atomic bomb? Johnny Vedmore investigates, and we find out that the latter is true. He has a family history. His grandfather, they were, and his father were Nazi collaborators, and they knew better at the time. There were reports of people trying to get away from Nazi Germany before things got worse. So this is who he is, and there were powerful people that were involved during World War II. There were American banks and American corporations that were funding the Nazis. That were funding Hitler's campaign. Prescott Bush was somebody who was involved as well. So Marcus, what can you tell us about these families and these bloodlines that have been involved for literally thousands of years?
Yes, literally thousands of years. It gets crazy when you start realizing that. In fact, for those who are new to this conversation and are kind of used to kind of being in normal politics and haven't really taken some of these things that are considered conspiracies a little bit more serious and dug deeper into them, what you start finding is there is some smoke to it. Now, I'm not saying go listen to those fucking QAnon idiots. Not saying anything like that. But what I'm saying is just follow where the evidence leads you and then go from there. What I started noticing is that when they would do these interesting little like DNA things on like Oprah and stuff, and they'd be like, or Good Morning America, and they're like, oh, did you know that Johnny Depp is related to this person and that person? And it's like that little short segment. And we kind of all laugh about it, oh, that's interesting, and move past it. Well, as you start looking at more and more of these things, you start noticing patterns. As you start noticing patterns and you put that together and find out, oh, wait a minute, this person, they just changed their name. This is what their name was before that. And then you trace that lineage. You're able to say, oh, wait a minute. What was it? The Kennedys, I believe, their name actually was like the O'Feons. They actually go back to a Irish royal family. A lot of these politicians that we think are just politicians, their families go back to either wealthy lineage, royalty a lot of times, and some of them were the people who were in the court who were able to get out with all their goods before the empire went down. So a lot of these people have what I call old money. And when you've been able to be around that long, uninterrupted, and there's been no, war where you guys have lost or been exposed in any kind of way, you've been able to just amass more and more knowledge. And as other people's histories are being destroyed, you're able to manipulate things because people don't know certain things. For instance, you get into the early, I'll say we'll go to the early first, second, third, fourth century, when they were starting to introduce Christianity into, modern day Europeans. When they started doing that, a lot of the people could not read in any language. And so whatever's being told to them had to be wholeheartedly accepted. And so what would happen is century after century after century, you build up that relationship where, yes, I just walk in, I listen to whatever the pope or pastor or priest tells me, and whatever they say, that's what it is. And so that allowed for a lot of manipulation of the Bible and texts like that, and a lot of other things. And so if you're able to know, for instance, how, say, the ancient Phoenicians set up shipping and their trading routes and things like that, if you understand those kind of things, and other nations don't, your nation is going to have an advantage at seafaring. And that's some of the advantages that a lot of us don't understand about those things. Well, if all of us know that most of those European kings and queens, they were notorious for incest. A lot of incest. Some of the families, actually, it was so bad where certain deformities became like known after that family. I can't remember one. One of them was like this certain kind of chin.
I forgot his name, but wasn't it like Louis something, like it was a French guy, and then it was like there was more inbreeding than like a brother and a sister. That's how inbred he was, because like aunts with cousins, so like all of them like breeding with each other
keep
for generations.
To keep the wealth in the family together. And what I started noticing is that most of these kings and queens, a lot of them were related through ancestors that dated back through Germany. And so it's interesting when we think of the French and the British and all that, as all these different nations. They were actually all came from, the same actual tribe and family unit. They just have all split and languages developed, as different marriages have taken place over the centuries with other people, they start developing other cultures. And as they moved into other regions, they adapted the cultures of, maybe the people which they took over. A lot of times in battle in ancient days, you would take over the castle of the other person and just modify it. Maybe you tear down a couple of their monasteries or whatever their religious practices are, and then build yours over them. And then now it's yours, and you kind of go on with, hey, we're those people from before. And so a lot of those people who have done that and taken over different names, they're all related, and it can be traced back to, I think it was like most of those people who are French, well, I'm talking about Caucasian, French, German. I mean, all of those European areas all descend back to a single ancestor.
Yeah.
So it was kind of interesting when you start seeing that. I mean, already that they all come from one ancestry, but at the top, there's like this little separation where you have all these other families and thousands of different names, but oddly, almost all of these people at the top are like all related. And you'll start seeing literally I think this one fifth grader, I think, she literally broke down all the politicians, which are blood relatives. I mean, you have like Obama was related to Gore and Bush and like Grover Cleveland. And it was weird. It's like 17 presidents are related. And along with vice presidents, then you start going to the cabinet members, it gets crazy. And then you switch over to celebrities and you start seeing the same, formula all throughout all of Hollywood. A lot of these people are all related.
And let's not forget, Reagan was an actor before he was president.
Yeah. We're really living in kind of like a giant world of, what's that called? When you're always putting your family in charge.
Royalty, pretty much.
Nepotism, not nepotism. Is it?
Well, that's what it turns into, but in our modern day,
I forgot the exact word for it right now. We're all brain farting here.
That's what we have on a global scale for the most part. That's why you'll see most of the wealth is all concentrated in a handful of people. I mean, like if you really did the numbers, it's something like 5% of the world's population owns like 93% of the wealth. I mean, it's like ridiculous.
It truly is. Imagine if it was distributed across all people.
We literally could have a utopia.
Yeah, they're just holding it back. They want to keep it all for themselves, and then they exploit us.
Yeah, because they're our betters. They know, they understand the intricacies of the world and how resources should be,
Well, what it is,
given out.
it's because you know how like if you were a cheater and now you're always worried that your boyfriend or girlfriend is cheating. What it is if you raped and robbed and murdered and cheated so many people from centuries, and you guys all know that history, you always want to build bigger and bigger fences because even if you started to distribute, if people started to find out, there's going to be some people who are not going to be able to say, okay, it's all forgiven. It's going to be some people who are going to be, pretty pissed off. And so I think that fear overrides, any possibility of them saying, you know what, we'll just start sharing with everybody. We'll stop doing some of this messed up stuff. We don't have to be like this. They're not. They're going to just try to build bigger and bigger and bigger walls for when everything falls down, that they hope that they can be protected.
Yeah, and Ali, were you there the day that Johnny Vedmore was on Slow News Day talking about this article?
Uh, he was not talking about the. No, I wasn't there that specific day.
Oh yeah.
So.
Tell Steve next time he's in LA, he better hit me up and let me know. I
Oh
saw he was down
yeah.
here not that long
They're
ago.
watching. Steve, you heard. They're watching, so
Yeah.
yeah.
Next time there's an event like that, I'm trying to go too, like to an event that's thrown over there, because I'm glad there's more on the ground actions that are being done, and nationwide too, man. So shout out to the people who are organizing this stuff. We have Ricky Rance over there organizing in New York. Josh Davis who's organizing here in the DMV. The Convo Couch is organizing in LA, along with the Action for Assange people who are also organizing. We need more of that. But yeah,
Like,
guys.
I don't know. Yeah, I don't know how much time we have to gather, like organize. I know that sounds crazy, but
not to
a
me.
lot of shit sounded crazy before, and look at it. It's the new normal. So yeah, get out there while you can. And I mean, again, there's still time.
Because we are running out of that doomsday clock.
Yeah, there's so much time.
And the elite class getting more and more powerful. So our civil liberties being taken away. Who knows how much time we have left? It's limited.
It's funny you say that, because on my Hebrew apologetics page, my last episode I just uploaded was Who is Mystery Babylon? Now, it's obvious if you don't know this is Mystery Babylon, but I start to explain it. I'm literally going into biblical prophecy, what it details for us to start to expect. That's the reason why some of this stuff
blow
I'm
my
just sitting
mind
back
when you
like,
talk about
wow,
this.
I can't believe I've read this here, if you can interpret and understand it, and I'm seeing this right here.
And you know what, Marcus? Isn't there a passage that talks about at one point there will be like people will be marked with something like a mark of the devil or something, and then the people who aren't marked by it will be able to ascend to heaven. And like, is that similar to like how people are getting vaccinated?
I'll put a disclaimer first.
Okay.
I do not know. I will say what the Bible says. It says that you will get a mark in your hand or in your forehead that any man or woman, if they don't have it, they won't be able to buy, sell, go into a city. They will be kind of shut out.
What does that sound like?
Like right now, I don't like that.
And right now, they also have the RFID chip, which people have been literally getting in their hands. And so if you start seeing some merger there, I really get nervous. Because at that point, because those RFID chips, a lot of those people are literally putting like their banking account, their mortgage, all of that on their car, and they just walk up and put their hand to it. And like, for instance, like if they decided to just say, you know what, pause your account, you literally couldn't do anything. You literally would be shut off. You wouldn't be able to go in the city. You wouldn't be able to use your TV. You wouldn't be able to use your car, anything. And they say that 6G, which they're working on,
they're already working on 6G. It doesn't surprise me, but dang.
Right.
Oh, God.
How many freaking G's? Like, what are we going to...
But it's like we were just talking about with the Great Reset, like all this, like people are going to be having like physiological trackers within them with nanotechnology. Their credit, and then they can track their credit scores and all that. All that's going to be tracked and surveilled. It's all happening. It's insane.
Well, actually, on credit scores, our credit scores are actually Biden. Something weird that he might be getting rid of credit scores completely.
Oh yeah, I didn't. I'm gonna have to read about that.
Or the agent, or getting rid of the agencies, or something like that. It's something. Yeah, I
When
was
they do
like,
that,
I need to read more into this.
when they do that, that usually is when they're gonna like consolidate a bunch of agencies and put them into, they'll separate it from, so that it's not technically an agency of the government, then they'll just fund it privately. Mark my words. I could be wrong, but I don't think I am, because that's a Biden move right there.
Thomas Oklahoma brings up a great point. Jeff Bezos, Bill Gates, Elon Musk, and Michael Bloomberg have more wealth than the entire groups of Native Americans, Black and Latinos combined. They also own 60% of the wealth of white Americans. Insane.
Yeah.
And that's just white Americans. But including the entire world, it's like 93%. Thanks for the Super Ray. Bubblegum Douche says, excellent panel. You all rock. Thank you for another awesome show. A bit off topic. I hope you don't mind, and my apologies if you do. But was part of your Twitter punishment to have, where did it go? Was part of your Twitter punishment to have people unfollow you without their knowledge or consent? I'm pretty sure I was following you before, but I just had to re-click follow, and I believe that's happened before, not Frank Analysis, but others. Hey, you're not the first person that's told me that. A lot of people have told me that they were like unfollowed from me without me, like without them knowing. The same thing on YouTube. People tell me they like YouTube unsubscribed them from my channel. That they never unsubscribe, but YouTube unsubscribed from. I mean that's happening. Like even within our friends groups, there's been people that have been unfollowed each other without like their consent.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's a thing. It's a thing that they're doing.
Yeah, it's just,
yes,
they're
they
just
are
messing with the numbers. Like, hey, here's a couple unfollows for you. Like, just for example, like Slow News Day, there's a certain number that's like you'll never see it go above, or they'll mess with like the play count. They'll mess with. I mean, you'll know that there's a certain number right after, and then you'll look a couple hours later, and it's. I mean, I don't have to tell either of you about it because I'm sure it's.
Slow News Day just said he had to resub today. I mean, it happens. Like I see my numbers get stuck at a certain point, and all of a sudden, like I do something big, like a video goes viral, or like I have a big guest who comes on, like Jimmy, and then it goes up like 200 subs, but then it gets stuck there for a while. It's unfortunate. These are all the things that they're doing to us. That's why I'm promoting, and a lot of us are here, especially are advocating for other platforms like Rockfin, Odyssey, BitChute. You guys got to spread the word on that too, because who knows how much longer we're gonna stay on YouTube.
Yeah, and Rockfin has actually, they're upgrading. Like I know that they've been saying it, but they're actually like they have been putting in some work just the last few days. So give it a shot again. And yeah, Marcus, I get it. Like people don't want to switch, but.
Marcus, we got to help you out with getting on Rockfin, and also the Yellow Brick Road and everybody else.
I never hear anything back from them. I've applied a couple of times. So it's just they don't even email me back.
I mean, I was just one person before. They didn't get back to me. I think it is. Yeah, it's a bit of a curated process, but I get it. So yeah, we'll see what we can do.
So,
but once I say I'll be over on Rockfin in a heartbeat.
So last topic for today is we have our hero AOC, who's fighting for us. She's fighting against the Great Reset. She's fighting against the Biden administration. She's a very effective politician. And we learned that in that conversation that I had with Jude yesterday, right, guys? Like, AOC is so effective, especially according to this right here. It says, so here's an article that says, the Do Something members of 116th Congress Legislative Effectiveness Study from Vanderbilt University of Virginia identifies members' success in advancing bills. Shout out to Josh Davis for sending me this. And we look at the ranking here from this study, and we see that AOC, if she's so effective, she should be ranked really high here.
Right.
But what's this? 230 out of 240 Democrats in Congress. AOC is ranked number 230. I thought she was doing everything she can. I thought that we finally have progressives here. Oh, but it's one person. It's one. It doesn't matter. She said
Yeah, it
herself,
doesn't
like
matter.
one person can be enough to expose all the corruption that's happening. One person is enough to fight to implement all these policies that we need urgently. But she's not doing that. We've been learning from videos that I've done, videos that Nico, Combo Cow, Slow News Day, the
Mhm.
Jimmy Dore Show, all these people revealing how AOC cares more about political expediency. But
Yeah,
yeah, Marcus and Ali, what are your thoughts?
Marcus, go ahead first, because yeah, go
I,
ahead.
I think at this point, if you are focusing on any national politician as being an ally to you, there's nothing we can say to you at this point. I think that you're pretty much too far gone. Um, the what you have, I feel like the only way you can get any kind of movement is you got to work on the smaller levels. You got to try to get involved in your community, see what you can do there. If you have an alderman, councilman, local city councilman, you start beating on their doors. You start, blowing up their phones, getting in their face. That's how you'll get things to actually change in your area. But I look at the corruption the system has. Getting anything on a national level I don't feel like it's realistic. I feel like what you're going to get is you're going to get the most politically promotionally wrapped appearance, but once you unwrap it, you're going to realize it's a load of horseshit. So I think your only real hope at this point is just on the small local levels. Maybe if you're in a small state, you might be able to move some things. But if you're like in a state like I am here in California, this place
Oh,
it is done. It is corrupt all
yeah,
the way down to the city council. I mean, it's down to the local sheriffs. I mean, the ticket people. It's corrupt in every damn sense. So if you're in a large state, a large city, I don't know what to tell you.
yeah, I feel that. I'm in Illinois, Chicago, so it's a state corrupt. We live and breathe corruption. Yeah, it's just what we
How
do
many,
here. It's just
how
friends
many
helping friends
governors
out,
have y'all
okay?
put in jail?
I know.
Ali, you want
The
to go
thing is,
off on?
I miss him. I miss the last one. He's actually better. Sorry, go ahead, Franco.
I was gonna say, you want to go off on these people who still think that a good strategy is to elect more progressives like AOC.
Typically, I do want to go off on them, but let's go the compassionate route for now, or somewhat compassionate.
Okay.
Like, I get it because it is scary to just actually face the fact that like you've been completely duped for probably a long time. I get it. Like and like you don't really know like what the alternative is, but until you can really like, nah, I mean, I hope one person takes us away from that tonight. But if not, it is what it is. You can find out what a politician's really up to and like what their real motivations are. Just follow the money. It's that fucking easy. Just follow the money and see who's funding them
Yeah.
and see how that parallels with the decisions that they make and the bills that they co-sponsor or draft or oppose um, in Washington or in your state, senators, local, whatever it is. See who's funding them because there are strings attached. It's not like these groups are just giving tons of
Always.
money to these candidates. You know, look out for just like catchy little marketing phrases. Like there's an entire industry of marketing behind a lot of these politicians like AOC. Her branding, everything, it's very intentional. It's very specific. Like honestly, the easiest way to just check it is just like look at who's funding them. Look where they're investing their money. Go look at Robbie Yeager's
Yeah.
investigations, fellow MCSC network person. He's been doing this for a long time. To see what their money is gonna tell you everything you need to know. I mean, of course, there's power, other things involved with it too. I know if Yelbro's watching, he's like thinking that there's like more than just the money, but for most of these pieces of shit, money is what motivates them. Sometimes status, like AOC might, be considering like a run for Senate later, but like their decisions, they don't really have you in mind. So if you still can't get it in time, especially after, the last few years, yeah, I mean, then I am gonna say it might be, I don't know what to tell you. Uh, it sucks to see so many people that I know they mean well and otherwise are, intelligent people, I would say, just fall for this shit every time, like for the same emotional platitudes, the same empty promises, just the same bullshit every time. And then they get angry at, you know, they blame it all on that person, or they're fighting with their family, their friends about it. And it's like, that person's still getting paid. And how much, is your life any better for it? So the more that we keep propping these people up and putting them on these pedestals like they're God,
Yeah.
it's just like everybody wants like a daddy thing to like, take care of it for them. It's like we're our own, we have to save ourselves. We can save ourselves. Politicians are going to be there, but, I'm not saying go burn it all down, but they're not your friends. Would you treat your friends the way that they treat, us? I don't think so. So that's how I feel. And someone like AOC, I mean, yeah, she is who she is. If the people that are still standing for AOC again, like I don't know what to tell you. I appreciate that you have like eternal hope, but when someone's showing you who they are, just believe them. It's cliche, but it's true. So that's my rant on them.
Shout out to Wardeer Entertainment for the Super Ray. And yeah, shout out to Robbie Yeager. He's exposing all these financial corruption, and not just with politicians, but with these nonprofits that make people think that there's actual progress being done because they exist. Even like think about how they're there, like these nonprofits, but nothing is getting solved. Effectively, nothing's getting solved. Like, so what is the Sunrise Movement actually doing? Are they talking about the Colonial Pipeline spill? Why do we still not have the Green New Deal, at least, that they keep advocating for, which is really going to help corporations?
Yeah.
Like, but still, like, they advocate for it. How come that's not getting done? How come we're not seeing that getting done?
Right.
It's because they they're controlled opposition. Just look at who funds them, which Robbie Yeager reveals.
Yeah.
Would they still be around if all our progress was if we actually got our goals accomplished? These nonprofits,
right?
I mean, they want to keep getting money from these institutions that are profiting off of what's counter to these goals, to the environmental destruction, and so they're gonna want to keep getting that money.
Yeah, I mean, they could just be like, okay, the problem's solved. Let's, we're done making millions. Now, of course, there are people volunteer or, even maybe serve on these boards or whatever that like go in with good intentions. But I mean, money is a powerful fucking drug. And as long as that rules generally, the people that are in power, what they do, that's how the decisions are going to go. So yeah, groups like the Sunrise Movement, or even little political offshoots like the DSA, because it is an offshoot, because it is going directly back into the Democrat Party. I love that more people really are seeing that now, for sure. But again, just like if someone tells you that they're gonna truly solve everything for you and that it's gonna be just magical and wonderful, like, don't believe them. You can't just make it go away. So yeah, there's so many different ways that this all like kind of goes together. But politicians are not your friend.
Not at all.
No.
I was gonna add on to that. Politicians are definitely not your friend, but the good news that I think that we can look at as a bright sign is if you look at what the ratings have been for most of these major network channels, CNN, NBC, even Fox, Newsmax, all of them, consecutively, their ratings keep dropping and dropping and dropping. I think ABC was one of the lowest at like 700,000 or something like that. They dropped below 1 million now. People have started realizing that this is just nonsense. And the only people that are really watching are old people, for the most part, sorry old people, and neoliberals. And or the whacked out, evangelicals who are running on their own fear. So that's the only people who is really watching that crap. That's the reason why they're doing all the stuff that they're doing to try to keep all of our channels down. The reason why they do that is because they got to try to find some way to prop up their propaganda. And people are just tuning it out. They don't want to hear it. People are searching for other outlets. And they are doing their best to nail down every window, every door. They don't want you to get outside of it and see it. That's the reason why all of us are starting to, like, if you would have, if you guys are not familiar with all the, the political YouTubers, you know, and you just like started like right now, you weren't listening, you know, a couple of years back. A lot of the people who are on Rockfed were all over YouTube and they had great opinions, and it was, you know, I didn't feel like they had to tiptoe in what they were saying, but you would notice, you know, month and month and month or year by year, things would just crack out a little more, a little more, a little more. Now, some of them stayed true to themselves and just got strikes and you know, bans here and there, and others conformed along with it. And the problem is, we still got a lot of people who are still listening to, you know, people like Mike Figueredo, was it the Humanist Report,
Yeah.
all those different people like that.
Sam
I'm
Cedar.
sorry, some of y'all love
Yeah,
this
Sam
person,
Cedar
but
types.
even secular talk,
Yeah, I was gonna say
Yeah.
Kyle Kalinske,
They're
dude.
just- they are all pushing the narrative. And for instance, the worst one of all, we all know, TYT
Yeah.
and Rebel Headquarters and all that, they literally are on, I mean, they literally have a contract with CAA.
Yeah.
Those who don't
And
know
with
what CAA,
Google.
look it up.
And with
Look it
Google,
up.
so that
Yeah,
their
people-
videos
yeah.
can get promoted more by the
Mhm.
algorithm.
So
Yeah.
And look, they
those
go
are
after
things-
low hanging fruits.
Yeah.
Like they still to
Yeah.
this day they make videos about Fox News,
They're
criticizing
only-
Fox News.
they're-
Bro,
they're
like that's
only
water is
blogs.
wet. Can you please talk about something more productive that people don't know enough about and stop wasting people's time about shit that they already know? Like
Yeah.
when have they talked
That's
about the
all
Great
about-
Reset? When did they have they actually offered a solution that doesn't involve, oh, just wait until the next election cycle and vote for these
Right.
progressives?
Fight harder.
Like how much? Like
donate
how
more.
we've seen that fail already, and we don't have
Right.
any more time. We
Right.
don't
Yep.
have any more time. Talk about solutions. What can we do on the ground? How can we opt out of this system? Like what can we do effectively? Because working within the system is failing, and it's actually exacerbating things. These corporations are
Yeah.
getting more and more powerful, and as we've just learned with the Great Reset, things are going to keep getting worse and worse and worse, and we see them getting more powerful. So what is it? This is why we make videos exposing these people, especially like the politicians, also like AOC and the rest of the squad members, is so that people can understand that that's a waste of time. If enough people knew that they were a waste of time, then I wouldn't be making videos about it. And Nico and Slow News Day and Marcus, they wouldn't be making videos about it. Combo Couch. So that's why we do it, so that we can expose these people and reveal them as misguiders and time wasters. Same thing with the people that keep propping up these progressive politicians. We want to expose them as time wasters. There's more productive
Exactly.
things that you guys can do with your time that can actually change the system so that it can work for us.
Well said. I mean, yeah, time is precious. It really is. Again, a cliche, but true. So you wouldn't want to be wasting your time, donating money to these different groups or channels that are going to tell you the same thing over and over again. They have you show up, you get your little dopamine hit, you talk to your people in your chat, and then you're done for the day. Did you learn anything new? That's probably, a bit of a flag. Did you discuss like an opinion that is outside of your own and not lose your shit? So it's just little things like that, like challenging yourself almost. Like if you're going back to the same thing over and over and over again, of course you're going to be in a loop. And again, I get it. I've been there. I think all of us in a sense have been there. But like, if you're still on like watching TYT again, I don't know what to tell you. I wouldn't suggest watching anything with me first because like it's a long way from TYT to, there's a long way to go from that. But like that, like the business model, like Steve is always talking about from Slow News Day. He's always talking about like this business model, the TYT news business model of taking mainstream media, regurgitating it, but you're not really pointing out like the millions of flaws within there and like the way that they word it and like the framing. You're just kind of critiquing a few things that they did, that whatever is happening in this article, and then you move on. That's bullshit. That's just dumbing down already dumb news.
How many channels have we seen where that's become the routine, where all they do is just criticize the mainstream media and that's it?
That's it. Over it. I mean, that's because that's like the foundation of their business. Again, like do you, but I really only tend to get like bothered by those types of channels, when I see their audiences then like go, they might get exposed to a new idea and they lose their shit. And it's like, you're doing your audience a huge disservice by that. Like, wouldn't you want them to learn? So I think it's also a fear of like losing that audience, losing that sweet spot that they found. It's just always keep those other motivations in mind when you're seeking out content. There is a business model, but you can tell over time like who's genuine and who's just kind of there to keep you on their little hamster wheel of like little dopamine treats that they give you.
Yep.
Yeah.
Final words, guys, before we finish here.
Well, no, this was awesome. This was a really good conversation, honestly. Thank you for having me on.
Yeah, it's always a pleasure having you on, Ali. Same with you, Mark. It's always a pleasure, man.
I was going to just say, everybody out there, don't get in the habit of only just saying, I follow this person or that person or whatever. I even listen to some of those horrible people on occasion just to know kind of a feel, ear to the ground what's going on.
Yeah.
But all of us who are independent and doing our own thing, a big shout out to, the MCSC network, Nico House and the gang over there, everybody over there. You guys all do great work. And you too, of course, Franco, being a part of the network. But what I notice is each person has their certain things which just naturally it gears to. Like I see Steve Poikinen over there. He's big on free speech. And so some people will hit the rap, oh, he's all about Julian Assange. And yes, he does care about Julian Assange, but it's more, it's about an overarching issue, which is very dear to his heart. And so if you're looking, for somebody who's going to be that verbose voice or defender for freedom of speech, that's a good angle to go to. If you're looking for somebody who's going to be able to expose you to a lot of new different topics, I definitely always recommend Franco. If you're looking, all of us have our different strengths. If you're looking for somebody who's doing a lot of reporting and they like
integrity,
to be on the ground, you got Combo Couch.
Yeah.
I mean,
Nico goes into
so
depth
many
with
of us are all
policies.
doing our own things, and I just say, use all of us. Absorb all the information from all the different sites, because then you can get a better informed picture of what's going on, because there's so many issues. It'd be impossible for all of us to be covering everything. So some of us, like myself personally, I look at foreign policy. I'm looking at
foreign policy. Go to Marcus for history, foreign policy,
and in history and religion and of that kind of stuff. I'm kind of doing what you would call the third rail of the left, in a sense. I do the stuff which leftists are not known to talk about.
Right. That's awesome. I would like to chat with you more, because foreign policies.
Definitely. That's what I say. You're welcome on any of my channels.
Yeah, and some of these channels are great for like hangouts, where you can find other content creators on there, also like chilling for hours, sharing different ideas, sharing videos. I highly recommend the Yellow Brick Road. You guys should check out that channel. It's a lot of fun.
Sure.
You guys might be weirded out at first by, I don't know, the setup of like Jordan, who's the content creator on there, just like chilling in the dark corner there. But he's like analyzing videos, and he's going into like really into depth, like with his psychoanalysis on stuff, and then people just have a blast on there.
I forgot for comedy. We forget about Mr. Wilson.
Oh,
Mr. Wilson
yeah,
too.
Mr. Wilson,
Mr. Wilson for Minecraft is all about that propaganda, because he got his feedbacks. You can, that's another thing with this community. It's it's a collection of characters, but honestly, new people come in all the time, and
unapologetic. I don't want to forget.
Yeah,
unapologetic for sure.
Unapologetically taking down and exposing people.
Red economics, Roar Media. Also, if you want to learn definitely about like environmental issues, such like that.
Red economics. Yep. Manitalk, all those guys. Yeah, and we have a lovely community, people in the audience out there always commenting.
For sure.
Yeah. But
I forgot. A couple of my people, I forgot Thomas Oklahoma. He supports me so much, and he does his content also. Great content. So please check all of us out. I mean, you can learn. I guarantee you will learn something from all of us.
100%. Guys, thanks again for coming on. And don't forget to stay informed. Take care, people. I'll see you guys tomorrow. I'm going to break down the Peruvian elections coming up. We're going to have great guests on: Fiorella Isabel, Ramiro Sebastian Funes, and Skeptical Mantis. Take care.